Always flexible. All right, folks, we're gonna get restarted. I appreciate everyone being flexible with us. You know, Murphy always gets a vote in these things, you know, with the registration and all. And but we of course have this wonderful backdrop of the International Space Station with the Dragon vehicle getting ready to be berthed at the ISS. And it's an interesting view. It really is. But what I think. What will be additionally an interesting view is when we see the Dreamcatcher vehicle docked at the International Space Station. And it's really exciting to be able to introduce our next guest, Sierra Nevada Space Systems Chairman Mark Sirangelo. Mark is Chairman Emeritus of the Commercial Spaceflight Federation and the founding and current chairman of eSpace, the Center for Space Entrepreneurship. It's a nonprofit 501c3 organization that supports STEM education, the creation and development of entrepreneurial space companies through the collaboration of industry, government, and academic partners. Mark was also formerly the chairman and CEO of SpaceDev prior to its merging with Sierra Nevada Corporation, and has spent most of his early career leading aeronautics, space, and technology companies. He's a technologist with multifaceted background and education as a U.S. Army officer. He's a licensed pilot, photographer, and holds a Bachelor's of Science degree, a Master's in Business Administration, and a doctorate from Seton Hall. Very impressive career, but let me just tell you that Mark is a great man. He's a leader in the burgeoning commercial space sector, but most importantly, a true gentleman and a friend. So please help me welcome Mark to the stage.
One of the things they don't teach you when you learn how to do this is how to be flexible. So we're going to be a little flexible this morning and recognize the true events of what happened. I speak a lot, and I think most of the people who've come to hear me speak will hear me be optimistic, and optimistic about our industry, optimistic about NASA, optimistic about what we're doing. And that's been that way for a long, long time. And I think as the events of today and the next few months will show, the optimism was not unfounded. I learned early on that you never get anywhere unless you believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing. And nothing positive has ever been done by a pessimist, in my view. I put this slide in here today for a reason. Ilan and I have shared a decade together building companies in this industry, and I was the first satellite on the first Falcon launch, and we have been competitors, we have been teammates, we've been commiserators, we have been a lot of things over the years, and I wanted to express my sincere appreciation and congratulations to Ilan and Gwen and all the SpaceX team. It is an amazing achievement for what they did. It's an amazing achievement for our industry. It's an amazing achievement for our country. And I think mostly it's an amazing achievement for people who will put the disbelievers back where they belong. The quote you see up there is a quote that I've had in my life for a long time, and I sent it to Ilan right after the first Falcon went down into the Pacific. And I believe it. And I think this is a representation of a lot of what I feel in this industry. We are trying to do things that people haven't done before. That's why we're here. That's why the space industry means something to us. I don't think anyone joins this industry because they want to do something that has been boring or has been repetitive. We want to take the challenges. We want to do something that is amazing. And in doing so, we fail. We fail along the way. And I sent this note to him, and I'll tell you one short funny story. On my satellite, on the launch that we were doing on the first Falcon 1, besides a satellite, there was also the cremated remains of a number of people who were looking to be buried in space. One of them was the remains of Jimmy Doohan, who was Scotty from Star Trek. And for the last 5 or 6 years since that's happened, I've always had this dream in the back of my head that I have this Scottish voice telling me something, that because I didn't get him the space, he's going to be haunting me from the engine room for the rest of my life. But we are, it's an amazing, amazing day, and I wanted to just take a moment and reflect upon what this means. It is the start of the next generation of what we can do in space. And the team at SpaceX and all the people involved in this industry, there are a number of companies, including my own, who are trying to do something, and this is the start of where we're going. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about something that's very different for a moment. Today is another day that most of you don't know, and since I have the microphone, I get to say this, and I'm being a little spontaneous too. Another part of my passion is a passion for children, and today is National Children's Day. And if you saw the news this morning, after 33 years, they found the person who was the apparent murderer of a little boy named Alan. Strange coincidence in some ways. But he was the boy who became the milk carton boy a long, long time ago. And I've been one of the founders and part of the group called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Another cause that, like our space industry, people laughed at for a long time. Believe it or not, when he was taken and found missing, there was not a system anywhere in the United States or the world that could track our children. And believe it, you could track your car, you could track everything else, but you couldn't track your children. And a small group of people got together and decided that that wasn't going to work. And very much like our industry, without a lot of money, without a lot of backing sometimes, without a lot of hope, they came together and began to put things forward to try to change that. Now, a number of years later, we have finally closed our first missing case today on National Children's Day, which I thought was a big irony. You may have heard of the Amber Alert program. Amber was a little girl from Texas, and she similarly was taken. And it was a story where this was a private charity without a lot of money, without a lot of ability to do very much, and sort of scattered around the United States. And when we had that missing children's case, people got together and we said, what could be done? A small group of people in Dallas decided that maybe they could do something different. So they got some broadcasters together. They learned of something called the emergency broadcast system, which we all hear the beep on TV. Very few people know what that is. It's supposed to be telling us about nuclear bombs coming in from Russia. Well, somewhere down the street, about 5 or 6 blocks in the basement of a building, there are about 10 people that run that emergency broadcast system for the last 40 or 50 years. And it's used for not so much for nuclear bombs, thankfully, but occasionally for tornadoes and for other things. So this group, a very small group of very talented people, privately got together and starting in Dallas, decided that they were going to do something, and they started getting broadcasters together, and they started getting people around the city, and through the power of 1 going to 10, going to 100, going to 1,000, they created the Amber Alert program in Texas. And then the then Governor George Bush in Texas adopted it as a test program, and within 2 days, the first child was found through the Amber Alert. And at that point, which was not very long ago, less than 10 years ago, there was no Amber Alert in the country. Now it's in 104 communities, or even more than that now, and over 500 kids have been brought in. Almost 500 kids have been brought in through Amber, and now there's a Silver Alert for older people who are lost. And the point of this story, and both of these stories, is that we're here because we believe. We believe that there's a future. I believe that there is an amazing industry in front of us, and this is a time to celebrate. You hear in the press a lot about NASA, about where we're going, about how things are not going anywhere. And I have a press clipping that I keep, and it says that NASA has lost its way. It says that jobs, tens of thousands of jobs are being lost, that we don't have a direction, we don't know where we're going, we don't know if there's going to be a next step in space, and we don't know whether or not there's going to be a future for any of us. And I keep that press clipping because it's dated in the 1970s. It's dated right after the Apollo program ended. And we all realize what happened from that point on. The shuttle became what it was, and although there's some people who tend to malign that, 135 flights is a pretty damn good thing in my eyes. And we look at that, and we look at those programs and say, where are we now? We're at the precipice of many of the same things. There is a big transition going on. There's a lot of change going on. But this is a time where we need to stand up and realize that this is a good thing. We are changing for the better. We're bringing America back. We're bringing our space industry back. And the events of today and the work that's been done by SpaceX is the first in an important series of steps that's going to make that happen. So I'd like to, I'll go into what I'm supposed to be talking about now, but realize that I think that really what is this about? Why are we here? We're here because we want to believe and we want to see the future. And I tell you a little bit about our company, Sierra Nevada. We've been around for quite a long time. We've been formed in now almost 40 years ago. We've been under the same management since the 1990s. We're about 2,200 people. We have been growing consistently for a long time, making money. And we have about 25 years in space and about 406 missions as of about 2 weeks ago. All of them have been successful, and we've built about 4,000 things for space, which means we know how hard it is. Space is a difficult thing. We have to do it in the right way to make it work, and it's not easy to make that happen. We do 4 things in our group. We are the largest builder of small satellites in the United States. We are one of the 1 or 2 largest builders of space technology, hardware for the industry, for virtually everyone else. We build rocket motors for ourselves, for companies like Virgin Galactic Spaceship Two program, and for other things. And we are the owners and developers of an orbital space vehicle called the Dream Chaser. We're celebrating our 25th year in space, so we decided to do something fun. I've got some really great people on our team, and they created this chart. We have been to all the planets save 2 and have been part of many, many missions. And when we hear about NASA not doing anything, I think NASA in the last year or 2 has done more planetary work than I think they've ever done before. And there's some amazing, amazing things going on right now. One of them is, one of my personal favorites, is the Mars Science Laboratory, or I love the name Curiosity. Isn't that a really great name to do it? And put it out to some kids and they come up with better names than we could, and certainly better than most of the acronyms that we use in our industry, right? Curiosity is getting close. It's first week of August. It's due to land after 340 million miles of a journey, and we've been proud to be part of both Spirit and Opportunity. We've did about 30 of the moving parts on both of those 2 programs. When we first got the contract to do that, it was supposed to be a 6-month mission life with a 1 year outside. We're now going on our 8th year in that program. It's pretty amazing. And can you imagine if many of you are in the industry, and a lot of you younger people, when you come in to pitch that particular story, you're sitting in front of the collection of the smartest people in the space industry at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They have scientists coming in from everywhere. And you go in and you say, we want to take your very expensive multi-billion-dollar program, we're going to take it and we're going to put it inside a really big beach ball. And we're going to send it across the universe to Mars. We're going to throw it out. We're going to bounce it across the surface of Mars. It's going to bounce a few times, and then at the end of the day, it's going to open up, and this rover is going to move off. If you could have seen the face, sort of the face is like you're looking at me right now. It was a different story, and it worked. It worked really well because a lot of very smart people got together as teammates. Dozens of companies from all over the country came to make that happen. Curiosity is going to land in a very different way. And the big green thing you see there is the descent braking system that my company built it. It's going to take it down in the last 20 seconds or so. And I call it 20 seconds of terror. On August 6th or thereabouts, I'll be on Valium, so don't bother me for the last few minutes of the trip. But other than that, it's going to be wonderful. We also do work for a lot of people. This industry is very interesting because you think of people as competitors in the natural sense, Coke and Pepsi. That isn't the way it works. I use a term called competimates. Sometimes we're competitors, sometimes we're teammates, sometimes we're friends, sometimes we yell at each other, but we all work together, and we do work for all sorts of people in the industry. And what you see here is the Orbital Cygnus cargo module that we helped build with Thales Alenia for Orbital. That will be launched later this year, and it is part of the industry, and you realize that it is a group of people that we have to work together to make this happen. Our satellites are now traveling all over the place. We are specializing in small satellites, and this is a picture of one of our hybrid rocket motors using a derivative of rubber and nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is laughing gas, for those of you who don't know. And it's my secret weapon in my company because when everybody gets mad at me, I have a valve inside my office. It pipes right into the air conditioning system. I just turn it up a notch or two, and everyone gets really happy by the end of the day. It works better than anything else I could think of. So it's a lesson to all of you. If you want to learn how to run a company, you need to find the tricks of the trade, and that's one of them. People think I use nitrous because it's a really good oxidizer for rubber. It's not the truth. What I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is our orbital transportation system we call Dream Chaser, and this is a picture of it. It is a lifting body, 7 passengers, 7 crew, but I like to call it as our SUV. It is a reconfigurable cabin so that it could take critical cargo or it could take all crew. It has a pretty interesting history. NASA has been developed it for almost 10 years. It's something called the HL-20 down in Langley, Virginia. It's originally meant to be the lifeboat for the space station because at one point in time, optimistically, we thought we might have 10 people on the station. And we needed a way to get those 10 people home. So this was a vehicle that was being designed to stay attached to the station and have a big red button that says go home if there was an emergency and you hit it and you flew home. And for a variety of reasons, including the fact that there weren't going to be 10 people up there, NASA put the vehicle into mothballs, and we took it out now 8 years ago and began redeveloping it. It did a number of things, significant things to it. Our goal and our mission is LEO. We're trying to get to the space station with crew and critical cargo and do LEO missions, servicing missions, tourist missions, science missions. We're not a beyond LEO vehicle. And our concept of operations is very similar to the shuttle. We take off vertically and we circularize around the Earth and we go off to the station. The launch for us is an Atlas V. We chose the Atlas V because at the time we were doing it, it was really the best vehicle that was out there. And our decision was made based on the fact we are agnostic. We could fly on any vehicle that could lift us. But we chose this vehicle because it was and is the most prolific rocket right now for the United States. It's flown 31 times successfully. And the Atlas family goes back to what we're going to be doing tonight, which is honoring John Glenn and Scott Carpenter. It has a long family history of success. We have been working with the United Launch Alliance now for almost 6 years to figure out how to do this. And one of the first things you see we took it from the side and we put it on the top. And one of the things I've learned in business is that if you're going to do something and invest heavily in a program like this, a lot of people tend to go at it slowly, and as we do too. What we did was we asked the 5 toughest questions at the beginning. What are the 5 things that if they happen, the program would stop? And we went backwards and said, if we can solve these 5 most difficult problems, then the rest of the program has a pretty good chance of success. And one of the things we first asked was, what happens if we take this lifting body and put it on top of the rocket? Would it do what it's supposed to do? And after many years of research and study, we've made a clear determination that it could. It has a low altitude ascent. It has a long duration on orbit. It can stand on orbit for quite a long time, manned or unmanned. It will dock to the space station as a piloted dock or an autonomous dock. Depart from the space station, and one of the really interesting and good benefits of a lifting body is that it has a very low G entry. Less than 2 Gs, almost 1.5 Gs coming in. And within hours, probably 6 to 8 hours from the station, we're on the ground in a runway, which for those kinds of situations where you have critical crew, if you're bringing home redundant crew, if you have experiments that are very sensitive, is a very useful thing. The piloted approach is piloted or autonomous in landing. Runway landing, it lands on literally any runway. One of the values of the vehicle is that it has no hazardous materials on board. Unlike the shuttle, which had what's called hypergulls, there are no poisonous or hazardous materials on board, which means that we could literally land at any airport. And one of the things I think about our space program is that it is too confined. It's too confined to places like Florida, too confined to places like Houston. We all see it in the press. And just judging by the enormous reaction to SpaceX or today and around the world and all the people who want to see this, there is so much hidden and so much passion about space that needs to come out. And part of my view is that we should take space out to the people. We should take space to where people can see it, where the students who don't have to come to a conference like this, they can come to an airport in their own state. And part of our plan is to land this vehicle around the country in different places and let people see America's space program where it belongs. Once it lands, it's very much like a regional jet. You can go right up to it and take people off. We have been working this program now for almost 8 years, and last 4 years under a program called the Commercial Crew Development program. And under that program, we've completed 13 milestones. All those milestones have been done on time and on budget. The program is on time and on budget. You see the first structure that was built to test it for strength. You see here our simulator. We have a full simulator now built, and the rocket motors for this vehicle have been fully tested for their flight. We've done a number of things in structures and avionics labs. We have worked on completing almost all the safety plans and the performance plans for the vehicle, and have done wind tunnel tests throughout in a number of different places, testing both the vehicle as well as the full structure, and all the mechanical tests that are necessary. This is real hardware. These programs and what we're doing, what all the companies are doing under the Commercial Crew program, is not just theory. We're building real stuff. Boeing, Blue Origin, SpaceX, ourselves are doing real work with real hardware, and I think the program, by and large, for all of us, is moving forward very well. It's one of my favorite pictures, and it's my favorite picture for a lot of reasons. I look at this picture and we see, obviously, the shuttle. But what I look into, and I see more than that. I see that you can't tell who's in there. You can't tell what people, are they contractors, are they NASA people, are they government people? You can't tell creed, you can't tell ethnicity, you can't tell where they came from. What you see is our space industry. And you see a circle and you see something in between that circle. And that's how I feel. I see that this industry and what we're doing is a collection of team. I have learned a lot in my career. One of the things I've learned is how dumb I really am and how much I don't know. And I think that's the biggest lesson you can know. You have to learn, you have to eventually figure out what you're good at and what you're not good at. And when you're, in our view, when you're not good at something, you bring the best people you can in to make something happen. And we reached out, we have now 12 industrial partners, we have 7 NASA centers, we have 4 universities who are all helping this team grow, and we're going to continue to expand that team because, in my view, the way to get this done is to make this part of America's program, to make it such that the entire industry, not just here in the United States, but perhaps around the world, contributes to success. Because why? We want to get there as safely and as quickly as possible. And in doing that, I don't want to recreate the wheel, and someday I want to be able to see my vehicle in the center of this circle. We have partners throughout the United States, and we actually have suppliers now from 29 states. And for me, it's pretty interesting because there are places I didn't even know were in the space industry. And I'll tell you one story. We have a supplier in New Jersey, and I don't know how many people believe that there's a space industry in New Jersey, but I have family there. There we go. Where are you from?
I'm over in Parsippany, that area.
Okay. My mom's in Clifton. So besides the hockey game, which is going on tonight, which is, for those of you know anything about hockey, is between New York and New Jersey, and there's a bit of a war going on. The story there is not really about New Jersey. There are about 12 people who work for us in a company doing work there. And we didn't even know it, actually. It's a subsidiary of another company. And we got a letter from them, and they were saying how proud they were to be part of America's space program. And these 12 people called their congressman, and told their congressman, we're working on something that could be part of one of America's next flight vehicles. And they were so excited that they have a picture of what we're doing up there. They have a picture of NASA in their building now. They didn't have this before. They barely recognized, I'm sure they might have seen it on TV, but it's become part of this culture in a small town in New Jersey. And I think that's what space really means. It's about being able to reach out to places that haven't really seen what we're doing and making it visible. And it's about reaching out to the children. I like to tell the story that we can't do this unless we have a future. And we've put a lot of time and energy into what we represent in our company, and both in STEM, trying to encourage science, engineering, and math, technology and engineering and math. We have 4 universities and dozens of interns who are working for us now on the program. And could you imagine the interns' face when they went to school thinking they were going to do some class and do some paper in class, and they wound up working, putting on hardware on a real space vehicle? The faces that they have, when they do that, it's priceless. And you see the faces of kids. And one of the things that I do when I don't really feel like things are always going well and you need something to be uplifted is a very good friend of mine brought me to the Air and Space Museum. And of course, I've been there a lot, as many of us have been. But if you go there and you stop and you look at the faces of the children who come there, you realize why we do what we're doing. You also realize why that museum is the most visited museum in the United States, and why there are now 2 of them here in Washington. It's not by chance. And we have to commit ourselves to the future of our children, of the future of our country through the children that we see. And the best way, I think, to do that is to get them involved as soon as possible in what we're doing. I have a short video here that we put together which highlights what we think are the benefits of why we use a lifting body. And before I roll the video, I want to say we don't see this as a unique thing in space. We see very much like there's more than one ship in the Navy, there's more than one type of airplane, there's more than one type of truck and car, that there are different purposes for different vehicles. And as we look forward to the future of our space program, there was a reason for the shuttle for what it was, not only to build the space station. In my view, that's what gets all the attention, as is rightfully so. But I think in the long run, one of the most important things that comes out of the shuttle program is the fact that it went up and built and rebuilt the Hubble telescope. If you actually look at that and realize about 80% of the images that have come out of Hubble have come because someone decided that it was worth the save. And they took an amazing machine in the shuttle. It took some very brave astronauts who had to go out there and do things that were thought to be not possible. It took a lot of very smart people on the ground, and it took a lot of courage on the aspect of NASA to decide to go up there and do that. And there are reasons for different kinds of vehicles. There are reasons for the Dragon. There's reasons for the cargo resupply that we're doing. And I believe that a blended view in space is something that America should have. And if we could roll the video now, then I'll close out. Thank you. We tried to find more dramatic music, but it was pretty hard to do. One of my other favorite pictures is that there's a lot to be learned from the past, and I like to think of this as big brother, little brother in my view. And we are so benefited by the amazing heritage and history of the shuttle, and every day when we go forward, we realize how important that has been. Today is a start and a day to celebrate SpaceX, but it's also a day and a start to celebrate the start of the next phase of the space program for our country and for our industry. And what you see here is our first flight vehicle. We begin our flight tests probably next week for this vehicle. And it is amazing to me, having been working with this for paper for so long, that this is going to be starting. And we're thrilled to be able to do that and be able to be partnered with NASA and partnered with so many good industrial companies and NASA centers and universities to make this happen. So I will admit that every so often as I leave my building, instead of going out the front door, I go out the back door through the assembly hall and touch and pat this thing on the way out the door. But we're really proud of what we've done. We're really proud of the industry, and I'm really proud to be here. And Alon couldn't be here. He's a little busy, I think, today, but I wanted If I could use his voice, I would do that, but I'm terrible with that. But I'm sure he would say that the same thing that I would say. This is a great day and a great start for the next phase of American space. Thank you very much.
We've got time for probably 2 questions. I'm going to actually take one of them. So if you all have one question, we'll see. Maybe we'll get another one in. But Mark, thank you very much for your talk. And as Mark alluded to, Mark will be the awards presenter this evening at our gala, which again is on the shoulders of giants. Which, if you come to the gala, you'll really see how that all ties in. It's going to be a tremendous night. So Mark. In your role not only as chairman of Sierra Nevada Space Systems, but as your former role as chairman of the Commercial Spaceflight Federation, I wanted to ask about. I sort of see commercial right now. I kind of call it the commercial triad. We've got the spaceports that we're working on the vehicles, and we're working on destinations. Obviously, the International Space Station is an anchor tenant, but we also have Bigelow Aerospace developing a purely commercial space station. And so we sort of see how that's going to unfold, but my question is about what I sort of call the unintended consequences. Once we get these things rolling, as with any industry, whether it be the internet or aviation, or when we enabled ubiquitous electricity, we did it for a certain reason, but all of a sudden, some of the more interesting things that popped up were the things that we never thought about. So I was hoping you might comment on that with regard to where we're going with commercial space.
So Paul wants me to talk about things that we don't know. Thanks, Paul. So I can say anything. That's actually a benefit. But I think the point is well taken, and I'll give you a real example. I have a friend who runs the iPod business, and he and I have been commiserating for many years, and they built the iPods long before we ever saw them. And what he told me was that they were waiting for a very specific moment in time. It had nothing to do with the technology. It had to do with the fact that they needed to have broadband in 30% of American homes before they could put it out there, because no one was going to wait for 2 hours to download a song. And I think the analogy here is that when we got fast internet, the world that we know changed. Everything that we're doing here, the video, everything we have. No one really knew at the time what the use of that capability was going to be. Could we have imagined Amazon being what it is? Could we have imagined Apple being the most valuable company in the world through its digital business? Could we imagine the kinds of things that we can get video phones as I have right now, that I could connect anywhere in the world? That was enabled by access. And I think one of the great things about where we are right now is we're seeing through companies like SpaceX and others who are taking on the lift problem, that when that access is enabled and vehicles such as mine and others are up there, we're going to be facing a situation where we have something that we haven't had before, and that is the ability to do real work in space and ability to really look things. And I think what we're going to see, the unintended consequences, is not a bad thing. We're going to be able to see that we can do science in space. We're going to learn from what we're being able to do. We'll be able to perhaps bring a lot more people. I work with the Virgin team and Richard Branson on the Spaceship Two program. And as he likes to say, and he said on CNN a few days ago, there are already more people signed up for trips there than have ever been to space in the entire history of space. What is that going to do as we look forward to what we're trying to do? And I think it's going to change our perception, and I look forward to it, because I think the idea here is to enable access, to make it happen so that very smart people in the scientific community and in the entertainment community and everywhere else can be given that tool. That's what we are. We're a tool to bring things to space and bring them back. And that tool then becomes something that people can work with and create.
We have time for one question.
There seems to be an ongoing tug of war between certain branches of Congress on the question of funding for Orion versus CCDEV. To the extent that the people who want more funding for Orion prevail and less funding for Commercial Crew, how much does that slow you down, and what is your current projected first flight date?
Sure, that's a great question. He asked me about everything in the world, and you want me to explain Congress.
No, I just want you to
I'm
explain how it
sorry,
affects
sir,
you.
I'm teasing. I'm going to answer your question, but it's a very serious question. It's a very important question, and I want to maybe answer it in two parts, if I can, sir. One is that we don't always give Congress the credit it deserves, and I've had over 100 meetings with members in the last few years. I probably know it as well as anyone. I chaired the Commercial Space Flight Federation for 3 years during some of its toughest times. And I'll give you an alternative point of view from one you've seen in the press. Most of you have read of stories about the president saying there's 800 million and Congress has appropriated 500, it's a bad thing. Let me look at it from the optimistic point of view, from the entrepreneur who has to be an optimist. 2 years ago, that House committee zeroed out the budget, and they told me to my face that this program needed to die and it needed to go away. It was not something that we were going to support. It got supported, not by a lot of money. It got supported again last year for a few $100 million, and it got supported this year by those same people in the House at $500 million, which is certainly less than the president asked for. But it was 25% more than what the House had last year. And you know how many programs that House increased by 25%? Less than the number of fingers I have in my hand. So what I'm saying here is I think it is a process. We can't expect people to come along and just decide that things are going to change immediately. This has been a tough time. It's been traumatic. We've all been torn apart in different ways. We have never, in my company, ever thought we were competing with Orion. I will state publicly, and I'm testifying in front of a lot of cameras, I believe in the long-distance space program for America. I want Orion to be successful. I think beyond LEO is where we need to be as a company. We need some type of heavy lift capacity to take us there. And I think what's wrong is putting these programs in that kind of competition. What we're competing against in my company is the Russian space program. We're putting $400 to $500 million in Russia. And in my view, I want to take the help wanted signs out of Russia and bring them back to America and bring the jobs here. That's my goal, and that's where we're going. Now, yes, there are people who are trying to say that this program doesn't need money and we need to put it in other places. And those people need to be educated, because right now we are spending the money. We're spending it outside this country and jobs. I have a help wanted ad from the Russian newspaper because they believe they're going to be building a lot more Soyuzes for us, because this program, in some of people's view, is not going to get what it needs. But I feel differently. I feel optimistic. I've got the same people who were the most detractors that we have now coming out saying it is a program, it should survive. It should survive with real money. Now the question is how much and where it will go. And I'm a believer, because a few years ago we didn't have anything. I think as we continue to show success, as you saw today with SpaceX, and hopefully you'll see with us in the coming weeks, people will realize that this can be done. So in my view, I don't think it's a competition. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening to me today. And as you go home, I guess my one thing I'd like you to do is to believe, because what you're seeing today and what you're going to see in this conference shows you that the impossible sometimes can be made possible. Thank you.
And that's what this is all about, is believing and staying with these things as we move towards these successes. We've got a straight out of the box, a little token of our appreciation here for you. And I will note that in here, obviously, there's the International Space Station. So hopefully one day we'll see a Dream Chaser dock there.
Thank you.
And look forward to the future. Thank you.
Got that access card? Place to put it?